Hey there! Do you know what this is? Well, of course this is money. A precious thing that everyone wants. But how can a piece of paper be so valuable? I mean, the paper itself probably costs less than $1, but when it has the number, suddenly it's worth $100. Well, this piece of paper is called fiat money. And no, it's not car. So what exactly is fiat money? How can a piece of paper hold so much value? And why do we valuable like gold as money instead? In this video, we'll dive into the concept of fiat money. Let's get started. 1. Short history of money. Well, everyone wants money, including you. But have you ever wondered, where does money? Because a long time ago, money didn't even exist. A long time ago, people used a barter system to trade things. Bob had bread, but he wanted to drink milk, while Tom had milk, but he wanted to eat bread. So they simply exchanged, and both were happy. But the problem was, the barter system had no fixed value and was so limited. Only had milk and needed bread. He tried to trade, but realized nobody needed milk anymore. This left Tom to exchange his milk. To solve this problem, people started using items that everyone agreed had value. This form of money, which was called commodity money, because it was made from common commodities like shells, salt, and other things useful and precious. For example, in ancient China, India, and Africa, cowrie shells were used as currency. A historical fact is that Europeans used to buy slaves from Africa using cowrie shells. So cowrie shells mauled daily transactions, like buying bread using some cowrie shells. But as the economy kept growing, people needed lots of transactions. Carrying tons of cowrie shells were impractical and very troublesome. Also, cowrie shells were abundant like the coastal region of the Indian Ocean, which made the economy get inflation because they were too easy to find. Yes, existed for thousands of years, and that's why people were switching to a better system. So around 600 BC, the kingdom modern-day Turkey made one of the first metal coins. Why? Because metals were durable, shiny, and much rarer. Gold and silver were harder to mine, which made them more valuable. This led to the invention of coins, which were to prove their value like a king's face or an official seal. Now, you can use these shiny coins to buy bread. Fancy, right? Why, in pirate movies, they always have this big box full of gold coins. By the time of the Roman Empire, coins were literally everywhere, but metal money wasn't perfect either, because gold is very heavy. You can imagine how uncomfortable it was to bring your money. So to make things easier, people started using paper money. First, paper money appeared in China during the Song Dynasty. Paper money wasn't really money, but a type of receipt. So instead of carrying around heavy gold coins, people stored in a secure place, like a bank. Then the bank will give them a piece of paper that represented the value of gold or silver which worked like a receipt. For example, if you had 10 gold coins, you could deposit them in the bank and get a paper money. This paper is worth 10 gold coins. Then you could use the paper to buy a loaf of bread in the bakery. The bakery gave and he got that paper. Then the baker will go to the bank and trade the paper for that 10 gold coins. This system's standard because the paper money is tied with an amount of gold. You actually still buy and sell things using gold is in form of paper to make it more comfortable. This idea was so popular and spread to Europe in the 17th century. Governments and central banks got involved, printing paper money tied to their national gold reserves. So for example, if a country lets 1,000 ounces of gold and printed $1,000, it means $1 was equal to 1 ounce of gold. Most countries use the gold standard, from the US, the UK, Russia, France, and more countries. But this system was maintained during major crises or war. During World War I, many countries printed more money than they had gold to fund them. So back to our example. If a country, let's say, had 1,000 ounces of gold and printed $1,000, it was equal to 1 ounce of gold. Now, due to war, they needed more money. So they just print more money without adding. Now, there's $2,000, but the gold is still 1,000 ounces. So $1 is equal to 0 of gold. The value of money fell, and that's what we call inflation. lots of countries printed too much money, exceeded their gold reserves during World War I and World War II to fund their wars, which resulted in inflation and their chaos. So, long story short, about 44 countries agreed to stabilize their currencies by tying their US dollar, which was called the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944. Why the US dollar? Because after World War II, the United States, which was one of the main players in the Allied forces who won the war, emerged as the world's power. As World War II took place in Europe and Asia, European countries like the UK and Germany already in gold. So it means they don't have any gold to back their paper money. While the United States, at that time, 70% of the world's supply of gold. So the solution was made to have all countries' currencies tied to the US dollar. US dollar was tied to the US gold reserve. But a similar problem happened again. The US dollar, currency, was high in demand as every country wanted it. Yeah, even North Korea wants US dollars. But the US gold reserves were not enough to back the massive amount of money. So, for example, if 1 US dollar was equal gold, and the US had, let's say, 10,000 ounces of gold, it meant the US could print $10,000. And for US dollars, as the global currency at that time was super high, maybe around $30,000. Of course, they find that much amount of gold. Not to mention, at that time, the US was involved in the Vietnam War, the Cold War, and more so. In 1971, the US president at that time, Richard Nixon, just decided to give up the gold standard, called the Nixon shock. From that point on, the US dollar became fiat money, and other countries also fiat money system. So it means almost all currencies in this world are fiat money. Well, that's quite a long hit. You might ask, after the money was not tied to gold anymore, then how does fiat money hold its value? Well, we'll talk about Section 2, how fiat money works. So the word fiat comes from Latin, which means let it be done. In the past, kings used a royal fiat to give orders. For example, a king might declare, everyone must eat bread, then say, fiat, let it be done. Because he was the king, everybody started to eat bread. Fiat money, similar way. After money was no longer tied to gold, it lost its real tangible value, or the gold value. It declares this piece of paper is worth $1, $10, or $100. So it's like saying, fiat, wait, so the government just needs to declare it and it becomes money? It's that easy? Then how can it be money? Trust the government who make the fiat money. Whether you like or hate the government is the one who controls the power to make the fiat money work. As long as the government is stable and strong, then the people will trust the government and it. For example, as the United States is one of the strongest economies in the world, people continue to trust that the United States government to maintain the value of the US dollar. And that's why the US dollar is still in demand. But in countries like Venezuela, where the governments face crises and hyperinflation, those people stopped using their own currencies. Two of those currencies collapse. Because what's the point of having trillions of a currency if its value keeps falling and no? So now you have understood about the history and the concept of fiat money. Now, let's continue to the next section. Pros and cons of fiat money. Now that we've talked about fiat money, you might be wondering, is fiat money? Well, let's take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of fiat money. Fiat money is often debated because it's entirely from trust rather than something tangible like gold or silver. But there's still some advantages of fiat money. Advantage is that fiat money is cost effective. Unlike gold standard, where the central bank needed gold reserves to print money, it is easy and cheap as the central bank can just print it as much as they need. This gives the central bank flexibility to manage. During crises, the central bank can print more money to lower interest rates, offer more loans, and stimulate the economy. Of course, fiat money has disadvantages too. As you know, printing too much money can cause high inflation or hyperinflation, bad for the economy, like in Zimbabwe and Venezuela. Also, Fiat money's value depends entirely on trust. If the government makes poor decisions or faces a crisis, people might lose confidence in them. The currency can quickly lose. So fiat money gives government and central banks more flexibility and power. But it requires more careful, or else it will cause massive economic chaos like hyperinflation. So those were some advantages and disadvantages. Of course, it was more than those, but in this video, I'll keep things simple for now. Now, let's continue to the next section. The future of fiat money. If you see from the history of money itself, you realize that money kept evolving from bar commodity money, then to metal money, to gold standard, and to fiat money. Now, you might be wondering, if money will the fiat money system be disbanded? Well, the answer is nobody knows. Currently, cryptocurrency is a money system to replace the current fiat system, because cryptocurrency is more decentralized, meaning it isn't controlled by government or central authority. Also, some types of cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, is limited in supply, so the money will stay valuable, unlike fiat money, which can be printed in unlimited amounts. Some countries, like El Salvador, all Bitcoin as their official currency. But until now, most people still use cryptocurrency as investments, rather than money to. Why? Because cryptocurrencies are still quite new and unstable, as you can see how volatile are cryptocurrencies. It's like buying a coffee for 0.001 Bitcoin today, but tomorrow you might need to pay 0.00 for the same coffee because of its fast price changes, making it unpredictable. This made most people still to prefer to use money as money and cryptocurrency as investment. So as long as people still believe that the government will maintain the fiat money, then fiat money is set to stay dominant. But if more and more people lose trust on fiat money and start to really use cryptocurrencies and other better alternatives, then the fiat money era might see its end. If you want me to make other of these topics, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.